is Nicole from the Nic Kimmie Show, and tonight I decided that in the continuing effort to eat healthier, be healthier, work out a little more, get back on track, because with the holidays and my birthday there was no track to be had around here, I'm taking advantage of the fact that my parents are away, sorry Mom and Dad, and I'm bringing back the house to a little healthier eating, cleaner eating, less garbage, plus not bringing it into the house. So this week was all about the other things that we could eat that don't have to be junk food. Like, we don't have to live on Oreos. We don't have to live on processed stuff. We can actually make stuff and it will really taste good, and we don't have to buy takeout all the time, which gets incredibly expensive and just really isn't good for you because they are putting stuff in it. So each night this week has been a different meal. So last night was Taco Tuesday. So Taco Tuesday for Ed and I, instead of having taco shells, was lettuce with the taco meat in it and the toppings, but I also made roasted vegetables to go with it as opposed to just the cheese and the lettuce. So that seemed like a good alternative. So tonight it's just pan roasted pork with apples, then put in the oven to finish off, and roasted vegetables. So the roasted vegetables substitute the usual mashed potatoes and mashed sweet potatoes I would make, which makes it a much richer, heavier meal. And the vegetables obviously are much better for you, and you have leftovers the next day, which is great. And actually my kids will eat them, so it works out good for all of us. So we're going to start with just peeling the carrots, because unfortunately these giant carrots really need to be peeled before you can cut them. I really do like the big carrots that you can get in the supermarket, the root vegetables. I'm not a big fan of the small bag stuff just because it's already been processed and there's a film on them. So I just prefer the unprocessed kind, but that's just me. Use whatever works best for you. I mean, around here, I work weird hours, and so I'm cooking when I get home, so I'm trying to plan ahead to make it simpler for when I get here. So I like to buy stuff ahead of time, have it in the house, make it simple. My mom is kind of a day-to-day shopper, which works for her, but doesn't always work for me. So the 7:30 phone calls I get of, what are you making for dinner tonight? Always throw me off every time she does it, and she's been doing it for 4 years since I moved in. So I'm just trying to get back to a little bit of a schedule that works better for me, which just makes me making healthier meals easier. Ed is on a mission to lose some of not only the Christmas weight, but just some of the extra weight he's been carrying around for a while he's unhappy about. So far he's actually lost 16 pounds, which is amazing. And he also switched to doing MMA, which honestly I'm not too keen on, because this is not We Are the Boom or whatever that movie was with, can't think of his name. Anyway, for the guy starts doing MMA, but he's happy, he's coming home bruised, but he's also losing weight, which is great. So carrots all done. So I'm doing 4 carrots, 2 onions, mushrooms, broccoli and cauliflower, and a few tomatoes. When you're doing any vegetables, you want to leave them when you're roasting them in bigger pieces. That way they get a nice char on them, but they don't fall apart or melt away. When you cut things too thin, sometimes when you're roasting them, they vanish, which is always a problem. Which seems silly, but that's just been my experience. So I'm not doing anything fancy, just basic cutting, and then the garbage bowl, which when it's not a frozen tundra outside will go in my recycling, but this week not so much. So, alright, I'm going to put all the vegetables on the same tray. Once they're being roasted, in my eyes, it doesn't make a difference. I'm not separating them out. We don't have any allergies around here, so it's a big deal. But you know, you can do whatever works best for you and your family. Some people don't like onions, so then you wouldn't mix them in. I really do the rough chop thing, but that's my preference. Again, I like it better. So this is just a little bit of the time-consuming portion, chopping everything up. And then once I get that done, I will go to the pork, which for this you can either do pork chops or you can do pork loin. I chose a pork tenderloin just because it's simpler. It cooks fast, which is important because tonight is swim team night around here, so the girls have to get over to the pool, and I don't want them eating anything too heavy because then it slows them down. So what we usually do is they'll eat part of their dinner before swim team just to give them a little bit of energy, and then they'll eat the rest of it when they come home, which may seem odd, but for my kids it works the best. So, and I have to go with what works the best for them right now. Since for the next decade or so, they will be ruling my life. So, okay. So I got that with the onions. So I'm gonna throw in some cauliflower, which I'm still playing with a little bit. I'm not a huge cauliflower fan, more so the other vegetables. Broccoli and some tomatoes. I really love when the tomatoes are roasted and then they go and they melt, which is really great. So, all right, that's all on that. And then a couple mushrooms. Mushrooms are kind of one of nature's funky foods in that they really do absorb the flavor of everything around them and they really fill you up, but they don't have a huge amount of a calorie content. So I happen to love them. Eddie does not, so I don't make a huge amount of them because I'm the only person eating them really. So, and this time of year, and well, most times of year now, you can get pretty decent mushrooms in the supermarket. During the summer months and the fall, you can get great ones at farmers markets, which is awesome. And here in New York, especially out here in Long Island, we have quite a lot of great ones. You can find them on the website. Kim and I have gone to a couple out east and gotten some great stuff, so I highly recommend that, especially if you like chanterelles and baby bellas. And there's a farm actually out in the Hamptons that actually grows them out east. So right now I'm using grapeseed oil. You can use olive oil. You can use any natural oil. Do not use canola or any of the processed oils, simply because your body doesn't process them the same way. And peanut oil is always a crapshoot. Not everyone likes it, so just consider that when you're cooking. Grapeseed oil is nice and light. So this is Himalayan salt. Doesn't have to be. Just happens to be what we have this week because it was pretty in pink. So I bought a little bit of that, and then some pepper. And that is really the extent of what I do to everything. And then I throw it in the oven. Oops, that's a bad piece. And that's it, it cooks. So, the oven's on 350. We'll cook the vegetables and the pork. We will start with the vegetables in and cook the pork on top of the stove. So, I will move this stuff out of the way. And we will go on to the next portion, which is the pork. Now, I have mentioned before how much I love my cast iron pan. I love it for multiple reasons. One, it holds heat really well, it sears everything great, but two, you can put it in the oven, which gives a really nice finish to most meats, and you can actually make cornbread and cakes in this, or the apple that I made in the fall. So I like to heat it up so it gets a little bit hot, so it gives a sear on the pan. I do put a little bit of oil in it simply because it is a metal pan and this way it doesn't stick as much. But again, you don't have to use a cast iron pan. You can use a regular Teflon one or whatever one you have in the house. But most of those cannot go in the oven, so check with your manufacturer. Don't just randomly get the idea to shove your pan in the oven. It could be bad for all concerned. So, and then it is simply a small piece of pork. Now, you can buy large ones of these in the supermarket or for your butcher. They're really very simple to play with. You don't have to do a lot to them. You can cover them in a sauce, which I do in the summer months, but in the winter I pretty much just leave them the way they are. Salt, pepper, put them in the pan, let them get dark on each side, throw them in. So that's all I'm going to do today. I did bring it out ahead of time so that it did come up to room temperature, which Stephen likes to remind me is very important with meat, that it rests before you put it in the oven. And the reason for that is that you want it to be an even temperature so that it doesn't go from shocking cold to hot when you're cooking. Just gives you a better tasting meat. So, all right. And then into the pan we go with that. Okay? Now, I have to go rinse this off because you really shouldn't cut two things together. So, 1 second, I'll be right back. Alright, I have now cleaned my plate, my cutting board and knife, and then I'm just going to get the apples ready for when the pork is closer. Normally I would use a corer, but unfortunately we broke ours, so I don't have one at the moment. So again, I'm just going to do a quick rough chop on the apples, nothing elaborate. You can get as crazy or as not crazy as you want. I'm only doing 2 because it's only to add a little bit of sweetness. It's not a dessert factor. With all these things, I try and make them so that every member of the family will actually eat them. The challenge I have is I live at home with not only my children and husband, but my parents as well. So, and my father is of the mindset that he doesn't have to eat anything he doesn't like. And as he gets older, I kind of disagree with him. I think we need to rethink how we make stuff. I mean, we've always been careful about salt, as he had high blood pressure younger. But the older he gets, the more vegetables aren't part of his life. So I keep trying to add them in different ways. So stuff like this, where I can get the girls to eat apples and vegetables all together, is a much better way to incorporate a little bit of healthier stuff into the diet. So, alright, so this is going to take a minute or so to brown on each side. And then in the oven it will go. And pork is a pretty quick cook, which is nice. You do need to worry about making sure it's properly cooked all the way through and white all the way through. It can be slightly, and slight is the slightest word here, in the middle of pink, but most people don't like that. So you're better off making sure it's all the way white all the way through. Alright. So now the apples go in. Okay. And a little bit of pepper on them. And a little bit of salt on them. Okay? Okay. Alright. And now into the oven, this goes. Because we are chocoholics in this house, there's no way to not have chocolate. My mother's solution, like many other people, is just to buy stuff from the store, which is great and lovely, and I love a good Oreo, just like everybody else. However, 1 or 2 Oreos won't kill you, 500 or 600 end up living in places you don't like. And now that I'm over 40, I am much more conscious of the fact that the moment on the hip, lips, lifetime on the hips has a whole new meaning for a lot of us. So I keep looking for different kinds of recipes that I like the bases of. Now, gluten-free being a huge thing right now, it's not a big problem in our house personally, but I do understand the advantages of cutting gluten out. So the recipe today actually is not a flour-based cake. It's actually a coconut flour-based cake. So it's bananas, coconut flour, coconut oil, eggs, cocoa powder, vanilla, and baking powder, baking soda, and that's the extent of it. So what I did before everybody got home was I made the actual cake. I mixed everything together in actually one bowl, so it was really very neat. The dry ingredients first, the coconut flour and the cocoa first with the baking soda and the baking powder, and then I mixed in the mashed bananas, the eggs, and the other liquid ingredients. So it worked out good. And then instead of putting a canned frosting or a really sugary frosting, I took dark chocolate chips and just put them on top, and Kim actually helped me smear them on to make a nice topping to it. So this will be the after swimming dessert this evening when my family comes home tonight. Okay. So this recipe can be doubled. I chose to cut it in half because this was a trial night. And I always think with trial nights it's better to do trial and error on yourself as opposed to making giant amounts of it. So here goes the first attempt. Oh, and I forgot the peanut butter. There's peanut butter in it too. Okay. Surprisingly moist, considering it doesn't have a lot of liquid in it. You can really taste the banana, which I like with the chocolate. The only thing I might actually shift a little the next time I make it is I might actually add a little more vanilla to balance out the cocoa flour. But other than that, it's actually really surprisingly a good option, which is really kind of exciting. So yay for me on the first attempt of a healthier version of a chocolate cake. The goal for Kim and I over the next few weeks is not only to get healthier, but to drop weight. Both of us have hit points in our life where we're not happy about the weight we've gained. I was, in the last few years, have dropped quite a bit of weight. I mean, not huge amounts of hundreds of pounds, but 20 pounds is a good amount of weight to have lost, which is what I've lost. But really, I have another 15 that I'd really like to see gone from my life that mostly sits through my middle. And I'm very conscious about it, the way I sit, the way I stand. I'm constantly pulling down my shirt to cover my middle. It's a factor of having children, unfortunately, and then just bad behavior for years. So over the next few weeks, hopefully with my workout and running and dieting, I will get to the point where I am a little less conscious about the middle. My husband is forever reminding me that if I was a little more diligent with the exercising, that I'd be farther along. And he's right. I would be. I'm just trying to do this slowly so that's more permanent. The yo-yo dieting of my youth is not something I can live with going forward. I have kids, we have lives, we have birthday parties, we have stuff. You can't yo-yo diet, it just doesn't work. And these extreme celebrity crash diets, which seem great in theory, just don't work for me. So, this was tonight's version, and I will continue the update and process of how I'm doing. So far I have not lost any weight in this first week of me trying, but my husband has. So yay to Ed for the 16 pounds that he's lost, and good luck, honey, with the rest of that needs to go. And hopefully I will be able to report that I have lost a few pounds by, a week or so from now. So thank you very much for watching, and as always, this is the Nic and Kimmie Show, and peace out, Girl Scout.